Welcome to Get Real Quick, a real quick blast of real thoughts, ideas, knowledge, and information in 5 minutes or less. From your Get Real host, Mark Lyford.
Well, today I'm very pleased to introduce to you our guest on Get Real today, Alex Charfen. Alex Charfen is someone that I have been following, one of the few people that I intensely follow on social media, Facebook specifically. Never actually met, we don't know each other that well, but I kind of feel like I know Alex because I've been following him so long. One of the reasons I follow him so much is because he is one of the most real people doing what he says and following it. And welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate that introduction.
It's true. If your timeline and anybody watching this Facebook or social timeline is anything like mine, you can easily get disheartened, perhaps, with what other people seem to be doing. And as I've said for a long time, a lot of people only post the very best of their life on social, and that's what the world we live in now, but it's not real. And that's the whole point of this podcast and Get Real and ultimately Real Entrepreneur, which is what I'm working on this year. And, you know, years ago, people wanted to be sportsmen, women, whatever it may be. There was a whole, now a lot of people want to become entrepreneurs. They see people out there. The entrepreneur is the new thing people want to become. But I don't think being an entrepreneur is portrayed particularly accurately, certainly in this social age we see. You've been around for a long time, being an entrepreneur. I have as well. And but before we carry on, I need to thank you, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, genuinely. I saw Alex post I can't remember the exact name of it, if I'm honest, but to me it's the 10-day water challenge.
So the 10-day natural thirst challenge or water challenge.
The natural thirst challenge. So I saw Alex post this back in summertime. Can't remember specifically when it was. And I've done the juice diets before, and it's one of the things that I've always suffered with, not being able to get hold of my weight properly and my fitness. And knowing Alex from watching what he does and says, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that. Now, from doing other things in the past, I knew that I had to be very realistic with myself. And I knew I'm an English person, an English man who likes a cup of tea. So hands up, I said, there is no way I am going to be able to get up in the morning and start drinking water without having a cup of tea. The older you get, the more realistic you get with yourself. So I said to myself, okay, I'm allowing myself 2 cups of tea in the morning, but nothing else. So apart from the 2 cups of tea, I stuck to it religiously. It wasn't hard at all. And it changed my life, genuinely changed my life. I'm somebody that didn't particularly like water before. I used to drink a lot of soda. And it genuinely changed my life to where even actually on the last night of the challenge, I was playing poker with some friends of mine. I thought, you know, I'm going to try a soda. I didn't like it. I went back to drinking water. And most days now, I will drink a minimum, finding myself will drink a minimum of 4 liters of water. So 2 of these a day I will get through without even thinking about it. It's there and it's genuinely changed my life. And I honestly, for anybody out there, go and check it out because it's life-changing. It must be, I can't remember when it was, May, June, sometime like that. And I have automatically, I don't even have to think about it now. I just need that water in my life. Game changer for me. And thank you.
Well, congratulations, Mark. Yeah, you got it. Anybody who wants to check it out can go to getthirstynow.com. And we have a 10-day challenge there. You drink nothing but water for 10 days. Or if you need to, you can have a cup of coffee in the morning or tea. But I suggest you just do the water. And, you know, I drink coffee, just so everybody knows. Every morning I have some really high quality coffee, but every quarter or so, I'll do a reset where I just do 10 days with water only. And it creates this ability to drink more water. And, you know, Mark, the reason it might sound weird that I'm like a business coach that runs a company called Simple Operations, but I have this focus on water. Well, what I saw in my life and in my career of coaching people and also running my own businesses was when I would get dehydrated, it's one of the fastest things to take you out of the game. It's one of the fastest things that allows you to lose focus, to lose presence and awareness. It takes your level of focus that you can apply to anything and reduces it. And I'm always looking for what are the simple things that we can do? What are the keystone habits that we can have as entrepreneurs that improve everything in our lives, that don't have negative side effects? Like the only negative side effect that people share with me about the water challenge is that they have to use the restroom more often, which when you first start, you will be shocked at how often you're getting up to go to the restroom. And I always tell them, like, look, that's a positive side effect. You're getting up, you're moving your body, you're not sitting the whole day like you might have before. But it's just one of those keystone habits that makes us better everywhere. And, you know, I have story after story of people who've done the water challenge. We had an assistant that worked with us. Her name was Kim, an office manager. And Kim was diabetic and morbidly obese. And she did nothing but the water challenge. And she did it for 10 days. And then it carried on like it did for you. And she continued to drink water. And over the course of a year, she dropped 90 pounds. And she's diabetic. She went from using 4 vials of insulin a month to using 1. And just that massive improvement there kind of changed everything in her life. And so I've seen just story after story of making this one small change of water and everything in your life gets better. It's very similar to like making one small change of creating a morning routine. Everything in your life gets better. And I have this theory that as entrepreneurs, the more we can lower the pressure and noise in our lives, the better we'll be at everything we do. And dehydration causes so much body and mental pressure and noise. It is something that when I'm coaching somebody privately, when I'm working with somebody in one of our, in our membership, we have a high ticket membership. One of the first things we talk about is let's make sure that you're drinking water because we're going to help you grow your business. And one of the fastest things that we'll do is stop drinking water. One of the things when things get busy, we'll neglect ourselves before a lot of other things. Yeah. And when you're drinking, you get this mind-body connection where, you know, I always tell people, say, do I need to modify my diet? And I say, well, you don't have to, but over the course of 10 days, you might find yourself eating healthier. And you might find yourself more sensitive to what you're eating and more sensitive to what you're putting in your body. And I love the story you shared. I was a Diet Coke addict when I was younger. It was one of the hardest addictions I ever broke. And I started realizing like, hey, there's something wrong here. Like I am getting up in the morning and if I don't drink Diet Coke, I'm not feeling right. And when I was able to finally give that up and stop drinking it, it changed everything.
Yeah, I mean, my partner, Gabby, so I went on a progression of beating, really. I was drinking way too much Diet Pepsi. And she said, it's no good for you, aspartame, what have you. I'd rather you drink full fat, as we call it over here, regular Pepsi, Coke, whatever. And so I did that. And I did scale down. And then she's like, you know, this is really no good for you. And I was kicking and screaming. This is before the water challenge. And she said, I'm going to put you on, you know, natural juices. I'm like, this is a slippery slope here. I've gone from Diet Coke not being available to full fat Coke to not being available. And I'd already said to her, I'm going to be on water, but she's a water fan anyway. And but genuinely don't crave it. Sincerely life-changing. And anybody that knows me, I'm so not into that stuff normally. I set realistic expectations. I know, you know, like I said, the older you get, the more you know yourself, and you just say, you know what, I'm not going to break my own rules. So I set the rules to say that cup of tea in the morning, I'm going to allow myself that. And apart from that, I found it very easy to deal with, to where, the most shocked I ever was, not even liking the taste. I literally had a few sips of it and I'm like, I'm going back to water. Game changing. Yeah, you use the bathroom a lot. when you first start, but then you don't get you get used to that. That's not an issue once you. I mean, I was ill a little bit last week, so I was sick in bed, and I just didn't drink as much as I would normally. But apart from that, I will have a minimum of 4 liters a day, finding myself just naturally needing it, wanting it. It's honestly, go and check it out. Give that URL out again, the website again, Alex, is for people again.
Get thirsty now. So get thirsty now. And it's a little tongue in cheek because in the United States, get thirsty is like, there's some undertones to it, but it's get thirsty now. Yeah. It'll change your life.
But yeah, well done. And thank you for telling people about it. And I hope many more people will go on to do it, because it is, you can't get any less health conscious based person than me in the past. And for me to have this revelation is impactful. So yeah, thank you anyway. So yeah, that's where we're at. So the whole purpose of this is talk about the entrepreneur journey, talk about yourself, where your journey's led you, and it's about being real. And that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. And as I said, there's too much fluff out there. There's too much misinformation, really. For you yourself, where, just for people that don't know you, tell people where you started off, how your entrepreneurial journey started, and what's led to you where you are now.
My entrepreneurial journey started from just a level of discomfort, Mark. I was always different than other kids. I was socially awkward with the other kids that I was around. I was socially awkward in school. I had a really hard time with school. Thankfully, I had some teachers that were really good that kind of helped save my life at that period of time. And I had trouble like following other people's structures or rules or systems or schedules. And so as a kid, I started like side hustles when I was really young. I was selling candy at school. I had a window washing company. I started a company in college. It's why I eventually dropped out of college. The company that my friend and I were running, there was a day where I was sitting in a marketing class, and the teacher put a slide on the overhead to tell you how old I am. I'm 50. And so he put a slide on the overhead of the expected salaries for each discipline in graduating from Cal State Fullerton, where I was going at the time. And I was already making way more than that. And I literally packed up my stuff and left. And that's like committed to full-time entrepreneurship. And I've run a bunch of companies. I've had a long career. A lot of them have been multi-million-dollar companies. Some of them have been 8-figure companies. And, now we have a company called Simple Operations, where we help entrepreneurs simplify operations, communicate with their teams at a much higher level, and achieve what they want through getting the leverage of having other people help them. I think one of the toughest things about being an entrepreneur, and something that we really don't talk about, is for our personality type, one of the hardest things to do is ask for help. I think as entrepreneurs, we need more help than the average person, but anytime we request help, it leaves us feeling vulnerable and exposed. And that usually comes from a childhood of either surviving the system or gaming the system, or a combination of both, but never feeling like systems were there to support us, and never feeling like we were really getting the help that we needed, and feeling like, everybody else had it easier than we did. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs had that experience. And asking for help is really, really difficult. And so we work with entrepreneurs so that they can build teams, get the help they need, and actually succeed. And, I think it's interesting how you introduce this about how much fluff there is in the entrepreneurial world today, and how much focus on image there is in the entrepreneurial world today. I'm the same way. I scroll any social media and I see guys sitting on exotic cars, and, the view from a balcony, and, this lifestyle that looks like everything is going great and everything's perfect, and private jets and all these, these status symbols that now entrepreneurship has become associated with. But in over 30 years of being an entrepreneur and working with thousands of entrepreneurs in the different programs and companies that I've had, I can tell you that 100% of entrepreneurs are struggling with something. They're working on something. They're always have something that they're working on. A friend of mine just left me a message this morning, Mark, and his company's grown from a few $100,000 to like 1.6 million. He thinks he's going to break 2 or 3 million this year. And he's just suffering from massive imposter syndrome. He actually left me a message and he said, there's days where I wake up and everything's going great. And then there's days where I wake up and I question whether I should even, whether I am the person to be running this company. And I don't think we talk about this in entrepreneurship enough, because when you go to a mastermind or you go to an event, there's usually a group of people that get put on stage and they're talking about how great everything's going and how successful they feel and how here's the things they've achieved and accomplished. But there's been more than once where I'm at an event and I know the person who's on stage and I know where they're struggling and I know what's going on for them. And that never comes up. It's just not the conversation we have. And so I appreciate what you're doing here, because I think that there has been an entirely unrealistic impression of what it means to be a successful entrepreneur created in the market. And as a result, so many new entrepreneurs feel like they're failing when they don't make $1 million in the first 90 days, when they don't have, the marketing funnel that's just printing money, when they don't have full automation so they can travel full time and run a business. Those things, sure, there's people who've done it. And there's people who are doing it, but they're so few and far between. And even those people have a really, they're struggling. I think.
Well, it's like the overnight success as well. This idea of overnight success, whether it be a musician or an entrepreneur, it's 1%, if that, of people that's the reality. It was that easy. You might see somebody now that is genuinely doing well, but how long does it took for them to get there? That's what people don't necessarily share.
Yeah, I think that any overnight success story, behind the scenes, there are years and years of struggle. And when Katie and I in 2007, we were heavily involved in real estate, and the real estate market collapsed in the United States. We lost everything. And we started a product for the real estate market called the Certified Distressed Property Expert. We recently exited that company. Somebody else now owns it, owns the brand. And, we have a long-term deal with that person where we're still getting paid on the brand. And we had a very nice exit there. But we grew the company from late 2007 to 2011 to $10 million. And we were the 21st fastest growing company in the country. And people used to say things to me all the time, like, you were in the right place at the right time. This is one of those overnight success stories. This is like so incredible what you've been able to do. And I would always share, like, wait, you don't understand. We were bankrupt. Things were not going well. It did not feel like the right place, right time. We put a tremendous amount of effort out in a short period of time to make this happen. And I think that, and it was a struggle. It wasn't easy. That business, the way that it exploded, it challenged our marriage. It challenged our relationships. It challenged our health. And I think that's what most people don't talk about in entrepreneurship. And whenever I meet an entrepreneur that's like, Alex, I feel like everything's broken and nothing's going right. And, my business is growing, but there's all these frustrations and challenges and issues. And I always explain to them, like, hey, that probably means you're doing everything right. If there's challenges, I just recorded a podcast on this. I always share with entrepreneurs, success or growth creates complexity and success creates deficit. And that's not something that most people talk about. As your business grows, as you add people, as you add customers, as you add volume, it creates massive complexity that we have to deal with. And the more successful you are, the more chances there are for deficit to come up. You have a company where things are going well, and then all of a sudden you get tons of leads coming in. Well, it's going to create a deficit in your nurture systems and your conversion systems. And so entrepreneurship is not about creating the perfect environment or the perfect company or having everything going right. Entrepreneurship is understanding that we will always be in some level of adaptation or change or overcoming where we currently are. And it's interesting, when you look at the entrepreneurial personality type, and I wrote the book, I have a copy of it right here. I wrote a book called The Entrepreneurial Personality Type to explain our personalities and how we exist in the world. And, when you look at us as people, we're different than the average person. When an entrepreneur, and Mark, I know that this isn't something that you might particularly do, but oftentimes an entrepreneur will say, I'm going to get into shape. And I'm like, great. When you start like working out, doing something like that, it can create momentum in your life. And they'll say, yeah, I'm running a marathon. I'll go, when are you running the marathon? 6 weeks. And how long have you been training? oh, I haven't really trained yet. I'm going to go get shoes tomorrow. And like when we set outcomes personally, we set Mount Everest outcomes that are super hard. But then oftentimes we get sold this bill of goods that everything should be easy. And the truth is, if everything was easy for us, we probably wouldn't focus on it. No, and so the more we understand that like the bigger the obstacle, the bigger the opportunity, and that's who we really are, you know, I think that's understanding our personality type as entrepreneurs. I feel like we are those people that look for the obstacle and look for the challenge, and the bigger the challenge, the bigger the opportunity.
I agree. I mean, certainly for me in my 40s, I've been a lot more realistic with things. I've managed to quieten my mind down enough to where, you know, I always wanted everything now. I was impatient a great deal. And there's certainly something shifted for me in my 40s. As I've said before to people, I've learned so much more from my bumps in the road than I have my successes. When I look back to my best successes in business, things were going at 100 miles an hour. You hadn't got time to figure out systems as such. You just had to deal with what was coming in. And through the bumps in the road, I've learned so much more. I've been a lot more real with myself as well. And that could be anything from deciding I'm going to get fit to run a marathon. I vowed when I was at the age of 40, and again, it's not advice. It's just me personally. The gym bores me. From a health point of view, the gym bores me. You know, a lot of people love it. My partner Gabby loves it. But for me, I'm like, I've reached a point now where I want to do things that I enjoy. I'm not going to go to the gym and hate it. So for me, I've got 6 dogs, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to walk them dogs. I enjoy doing it, even though we live in the UK and the weather's not great. I've adapted my mindset to, even if it's not sunny and warm, I'm walking those dogs. That's my exercise. I'm looking at starting Pilates or yoga, and that's enough for me because it makes me happy, and I'm doing what I want to do, and I can, you know, walk 10,000 steps a day and look at my diet, take the water, and it's a lot more realistic. Whereas 10 plus years ago, I was forcing myself to do things. And I know we all have to do things we don't want to do. But for me, I was realistic with myself. So that's not going to happen. I've tried it. It's not going to happen. And when it comes to the personality types of entrepreneurs, unfortunately, we can be people that, like you said, shoot for the moon when necessarily we're not able to get to the moon initially. And that's our type. That's the type of people we are. I said to Gabby when we first got together, you know, I'm not easy to live with, which is not necessarily one of the opening lines of a partner that you've only been dating for a couple of months wants to hear. But it's true. Again, I've learned from relationships in the past, being with an entrepreneur is not an easy thing, and I don't think people understand it unless you've experienced it. It is not sometimes it is not easy for a partner. And I actually, there was a blog post about 8 things or 7 or 8 things you need to know about being with an entrepreneur, and I sent the website address to her, and I said, you should read this. And I think actually it was only perhaps a year or so after she'd read it that she realized actually this is real. So I know you focus on people building teams around them. One of the things I'm missing at the moment is not having that team, which is what I'm going to be working on this year for Real Entrepreneur and my plans for that. And ultimately, with the last few years of events, entrepreneurs can be even more isolated, feel more isolated than ever before. Obviously, things are getting better now. But I do think there's a switch there. Like I've deliberately set out my plans this year to mean that physical meetups with people are going to happen. If you're not careful, if you're anything like me, you can spend all your time in front of the computer. Yeah, Zoom's great, but nothing replaces that physical interaction with people. And I think whether you're a solo entrepreneur or you're starting out a business, or even if you're not an entrepreneur at the moment, but you want to be, a lot of people are working from home doing their jobs. It's a different world we live in now. I don't see it changing particularly. Certainly over here in the UK, there was a thing came out last week that they studied the cell phone usage in the city of London. And on Mondays and on Fridays, the cell phone usage is 50% down in the city of London compared to what it was 3 years ago. And people are working from home more. It can be very isolating. Now, I know you focus on taking businesses that have got a level of business coming in and getting them to scale, building the teams. And you're someone that I will be looking to work with once Real Entrepreneur is to a point where you can. In fact, I asked you, I don't mind sharing it. I messaged you saying, listen, these are my plans for next year. This was ages ago. Because Real Entrepreneur has been in the works in my head for a long time. And you said, we don't really deal with startups. So that set my goal to say, okay, Alex is someone I'm going to be working with when I hit a certain level. Because what I've always struggled with is teams. I have struggled with teams. I'm not a great manager. So I've never really had a massive team. The most people I ever had working with me was, I think it was 26 people, but it's 20 odd years ago, a very different time. And I've always struggled managing. I'm personally, I think I'm either too soft or too hard. I find it very hard to get the middle ground with managing a team, to where I know that when I'm putting my team together, which I'm planning to do on a small scale to start anyway, I know at some point I am going to need a kick-ass manager to manage the business. I'm going to need a business manager that not removes me. I want any part of the team, anybody in the team to feel that they can talk to me, come to me. But I know I'm going to need some form of business manager managing those people on a daily basis, because like I said, I'm not great at managing people myself. What I do know from feedback I've had from people in the past is that I'm a good visionary, a good motivator of people, sharing the vision of what I've got going on. That's great. Boxes tick there. But actually day-to-day managing of people, I'm not good at. So when you're dealing with people or dealing with companies that are looking to scale, perhaps you can share for people listening this, or first of all, people listening to this, will you be looking to start their business? They already have one and they're looking to scale it. Perhaps you can share a bit about your thoughts on building the right team and structuring it along the lines of what I've just said. Because for me, it's something I'm going to be speaking to you about. I'm in a chicken and egg situation with Real Entrepreneur at the moment, in that I know I need to put a small team together. But I also then know that having a small team is very different compared to when I'm looking to scale. And I'm going to be coming to you and saying, Alex, right, it's doing this. I want to take it to the next level.
Mark, I think the first thing to mention for everybody listening is that I would say somewhere around 90% plus of entrepreneurs that we work with share the same sentiment you just did, that they're not a good manager. And I think that when you look at all of the skill sets of being a visionary, visionary entrepreneurs are that small percentage of the population that get up every morning, we travel into the future, we create a new reality, we come back to the present and demand that reality becomes real. And, that is not an easy process to go through on a day-to-day basis. We spend so much time in the future that it's hard to sometimes be in the present. And so whenever somebody tells me they're not a good manager, I understand. I feel the same way. I'm not a great manager of people. I couldn't have management be my main thing that I do. But as entrepreneurs, and so I want everyone to know it's not easy. It's not easy to start building a team. It's not easy to get people around you. But if you do so within a process, if you have a process and a structure through which you hire people, through which you discover what people need to do within the business and you find that right person, and you have a structure around you, you can go from trying to manage and just lead. And, I have this framework where the difference between transactional management and transformational leadership. Transactional management is what we most of the time talk about when we say we're not good managers. It's telling somebody what to do, checking that it got done, telling them what to do again, checking it got done, telling them what to do. It's exhausting. And as visionaries, if we get stuck in that transactional management loop, we can be not the nicest people in the world. We can actually really turn people around us off. We can demotivate people. We can frustrate people. We can make them feel attacked. But if we can step from transactional management into what we call transformational leadership, which is where instead of telling people what to do and checking that it got done and telling them what to do again, we create really clear outcomes for people. I think one of the hardest things for visionaries to do, I just recorded a podcast on our Momentum podcast called The Life's Work of a Visionary. And the life's work of a visionary is taking that future vision and making it tangible and real for the people around us so that they understand it, but not just in a vision sense, in a step-by-step, here's the plan sense. And so we help visionaries create that clear outcome for the company, for the team, for the departments within the company. And when you have clear outcomes, instead of checking that it got done, telling them what to do, you can coach success. And here's what I know about most visionary entrepreneurs. I'd say, again, 90% plus. We're not great managers, but we're good at inspiring people. We're good at coaching people. We're good at answering questions. We're good at helping them self-discover. And so if we can set ourselves up where our team has clear outcomes and we coach success along the way, we get this massive leverage in our results. And here's what I mean by leverage in our results. When people have clear outcomes and we're letting the team pursue it, the team can get out in front of us and they can actually start going after what we want to achieve as visionaries when we make it clear enough for them and they have a plan. And when we're coaching success along the way, those people actually grow. They start duplicating our decision making. The people on our team understand what we really want. They see our vision in a different way. And when I say, you do those things, you get leverage results, you grow, the people grow, the company grows. And getting stuck in that transactional place is so painful for us. But if you have a system through which you manage your business, you can stay in that transformational leader place. And I work almost exclusively with off the charts visionaries that have visions so big and companies that are so game changing and things that they want to do that are so different than what's out there right now. I can hear a lot of that in your language, by the way, Mark. And the hardest thing for them to do is to have people understand that. But when we put this process in place, what we see happen over and over again is that the perspective of a visionary will change. They'll start thinking, I can get so much more done. I can do so much more. I can produce so much more. And we've helped so many companies go from, right around $1 million, usually between 1 and 3 million is where people join us, sometimes a little bit lower. And we've watched them go from 3 to 10 and from 10 to 30. And it's happened over and over again that we've seen these companies explode, because when you stay in that transformational leadership place, that's where we belong as visionaries. But without a process that gets you there, it can be very difficult.
For sure. Yeah. Which is why I'll be coming to you as soon as I can.
I'm looking forward to it.
Being a visionary has its pitfalls as well. I mean, timing, I've learned, is everything. I've been heavily involved in cryptocurrencies for the last 10 years now. And you can be, certainly in that space, not necessarily as much now, but certainly a few years ago, you can be way too ahead of the game. And one of the businesses I had was 2 years too early. It was I didn't rein myself in, thinking actually I was too focused on let's get it out there. It was 2 years too early for the market. And so timing as well is everything. And certainly for me, well, like the biggest team I had, again, it was only 26 people. It kind of just happened. There wasn't really a major plan. I was in my mid-20s and it was a different time. But even now, I'm very aware that the foundations of my team, I've got to pick carefully. I've got the vision for Real Entrepreneur and the Real Entrepreneur Network. It's there. I could talk for an hour plus about what I want the vision to be and what it will become. But I'm very aware that I can't do it all myself, of course. And picking the early stages, people involved in my team are, for me, critically important, because you've got to find the people that, any startup really is more based on a vision, and getting those right few people to start is immensely important to me, because if you get the wrong team, that can put you back a long way as well. You're constantly fighting the wrong type of people that you're working with, and it's finding the people that get you, and I can put the vision forward, like you said, the step-by-step plan and the process as to what is going to be achieving what everybody, hopefully, that's part of the team, wants to achieve. It isn't easy. It isn't easy. I've had great team members, again on a small scale, great team members that have worked very well, but I've also had in the past others that kind of set things off on the wrong track, disrupted the other good members of the team as well. It's one of the things that I'm particularly concerned about in going into 2023. And then first few key people is, for me, going to be very important, because I'd like to think that those first few people will be with me a long time as the team progresses and builds, and they've got to be the right type of people to be able to adapt as we grow. And again, for me, I'm based in the UK. I know some of the people that I'm going to want to bring in as part of my team are going to be based wherever they are in the world. So then, I've 20 odd years ago was running a virtual team. I was based in the UK or the Bahamas, and then it was only it was about 2 years until we more or less got the core members of the team together in the same place. We did eventually get it to where the core members were in Florida, but for 2 years of that, we were all virtual based. This was 20 years ago, so this was before Zoom, Skype was only just a thing. So it's not easy for somebody starting out, but at the same time, no entrepreneur can do everything themselves. If you're thinking you can, do that, you're on a highway to nowhere. I very much know that having the right team is going to get the vision achieved right. So yeah, it's that's what you do. You focus on building the systems out of people that need to expand their business to take them to the next level. When I in my head, Real Entrepreneur will be needing to do $1 million a year, and then I'm going to be coming to you to say, right, let's go to the next level, because I already know the vision of what it's going to be in 5 years' time, where I want it to be. It's just, and having somebody as I don't know if you call yourself a mentor, I would, to be able to be part of what you're doing. Certainly mentors for me have been critical in my past successes. What do you feel about, I don't know if you call yourself a mentor or it's a coaching program, but for you personally, have you had any mentors of note in your life that have made a massive change?
So many. I think as entrepreneurs, one of the biggest shortcuts is finding somebody who's been where you want to be and then being able to understand how they got there. And today, I think there's more help available for entrepreneurs than there's been at any point in time. There's also more noise. There's more noise than there ever has been. And there's more people out there who are promising they can get you a result that they've never achieved for themselves than I've ever seen. But there's also more help and more advice and more even free information for entrepreneurs. It's just extraordinary. And for me, when you say, have you had mentors? For me, I think back to when I was a kid in high school. I had a mentor that taught me how to do public speaking and how to become a public speaker. His name's Rick Lara. We're still friends today. He was my speech coach from when I was 13. I'm 50 now. So we have a 37-year relationship, and I still keep in touch with him. And I think having someone help you from where you are is one of the fastest ways to success. And in the time we have left, Mark, I think for you and for so many other people, one of the biggest challenges is, how do I hire the first team member? How do I hire the right first team member? How do I know what they should do? How do I know how they can help me? And I have a process for that I can share briefly, because I think that sometimes for us as entrepreneurs, we're working as a solopreneur, we're in that early startup phase, and it's like, oh, someday I'm going to have 3 team members or 4 team members or 5, or I'm going to have a team that looks like this. But for me, it's like, hey, let's get you that first leverage, that first help. And let's make sure that works. And let's give it the highest percentage chance of success. And so, there's this process that we teach it's called the 2-week time study. And whenever I say that to somebody, if they've ever done a time study before, they kind of groan like, oh man, because here's what it is. For 2 weeks, you carry around sheets of paper, you write down everything that you're doing for 2 weeks, and you take this inventory of your time. And for us as entrepreneurs, data helps us make better decisions. And for most of us, we don't really understand where we're spending our time. Calendars lie, intention is there, but oftentimes we're doing other things. We miss all the little things that we're doing. And when we're working with somebody who's got a smaller business, is just growing, or somebody who wants to join our program, this is a suggestion I make. Do a 2-week time study where you write down every single thing that you're doing. And at the end of 2 weeks, well, what'll happen over the course of the 2 weeks is you'll become far more productive, because you have to write it down. But then what also happens is you have this inventory of everything you're doing, and you can ask yourself, what of these things can I go find somebody to help me with? And it can be a part-time assistant, a VA, somebody who's in another country. But so often, just getting that first person in place that takes some of the pressure off gives you the leverage that can really grow the business. So it's a 2-week time study. You analyze the time study, look at what somebody else could do, build a job description out of that, and go find that person. And for us, when we're working with somebody, and in the past, I worked with earlier stage businesses, when we could get that first person on board successfully through a process that gave us data, then it starts getting easier to find the next person and the next person. And for the people who are in our high ticket program, we have in our coaching program, we have people do a time study every quarter and look at their time and where are they spending their time. And that's how they're methodically replacing themselves in their business. And, people think, well, there's going to be a time where I get to where I'm not going to do this anymore. We have members in our program that are running $30 million companies, and they're still doing time study every quarter and replacing what they're doing right now. And they're replacing the tactics with more strategic behaviors. And that's how we really grow a company. And so if there's anybody out there listening who is just in that place where you're like, I'm starting to think I need help, get the data first, and then it'll help you grow. I actually have a podcast on the Momentum podcast called Double Your Productivity in 2 Weeks that explains the time study in detail. It's about 15 minutes, and it'll give you a lot more information on just how effective going through this process is.
Cool. Well, that's something I'm going to be listening
almost
to.
Everything in life. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Mark.
No,
I was just saying, for me, almost everything comes down to a process.
Yeah, well, it's great. For me, I will be listening to that podcast, and I will be doing that 2-week time study. I know shortly to get the momentum I want to get. I'm going to need to start that process. So yeah, thank you for that. I'll be listening.
You got it.
I'll be looking to do that myself. Thank you, man. We could have talked so much more, but I think what we've discussed is great. I know it's going to be very helpful to people listening to this podcast. And as I said, it's for me, it's doing what you do. It gives me one of my first goals to be able to call you up and say, hey, I'm ready. And that's inspiring for me to be able to think at some point, hopefully in the not too distant future, I'm going to be able to call you and say, right, we're ready to go and let's take it to the next level. But thank you for your time. And I've been really looking forward to this for a while now. It's been booked in for a while. And thank you for everything you've shared, because it means a great deal that you would share it with me and my audience.
Oh, Mark, it's my pleasure. And full disclosure, we're getting to the top of the hour here. My next appointment's with my therapist. And so when you see the people on stage, rarely do they say, it takes a tremendous amount of help to get to where you want to be as an entrepreneur. And so I love what you're doing here with Real Entrepreneur. I love that you're having candid conversations about what it's really like. And I'm proud to be on the podcast, and I'm looking forward to your phone call.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Alex. Catch you soon.
You got it, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Mark. I'm looking forward to talking to you when you're ready for us. And if you go to charfen.com/podcast, so my last name.com/podcast, and you search Double Your Productivity, you'll pull up that podcast. You can check it out.
I'm going to go and listen to it. Thanks, man.
Awesome.
I'll catch you soon.
Mark,
Cheers,
I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, buddy. Bye, man.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
You've been listening to the Get Real podcast with Mark Lyford. Being an entrepreneur isn't all glitz and glamour. Entrepreneurs are some of the most hardworking people in the world. And within entrepreneurship, there's life, mental health, business, ups and downs. And that's why we exist. Our passion is to talk about all of it with no BS. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Find Mark on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube at Mark Lyford. And be sure to hit the website, realetrepreneur.com. From there, get his book. You won't be disappointed. See you next time on Get Real.